A woman will completely recreate the history of your relationship in her own mind. She'll literally practice her goodbye speech and mentally check out before ever saying a word. And it all happens because you missed out on doing something she desperately craved, but refused to actually ask for. The craziest part is that you'll be completely clueless about what went wrong until right now, because I am about to lay it all out for you. Let me start with a quick confession. I almost skipped making this video, and not because it's an awkward conversation. Believe me, I really don't care about that. It's because what I'm about to reveal completely exposes a secret code that women have been quietly keeping for generations. Researchers over at the University of Texas did a massive multi-year study on communication gaps in relationships. What they discovered should honestly shock every single guy watching this. A staggering 72% of women admitted they wanted very specific things from their partner that they never once actually voiced. Not because they forgot to mention it, and not because it didn't matter, but because they genuinely believed that if they had to ask you for it, the gesture would lose all its value. It completely ruins the meaning for them. She would literally rather go without getting what she wants than have to explain it to you. That isn't just her being stubborn, and it's not a character flaw. It's simply how she's wired. If you don't grasp that wiring, you're going to keep losing women who are totally crazy about you, and you'll never figure out why they went silent or why they walked away. Now, I gave this video a slightly provocative title for a reason, but it's probably not what's crossing your mind. Sure, a few of these things are about physical intimacy, but most of them are intense in a completely different way. These are the deep thoughts she keeps buried because society makes her feel like wanting them makes her seem too dramatic, too needy, too old-fashioned, or just too much. So she locks them away in a mental safe, buries the key, and just hopes that you'll somehow read her mind and figure it out. Well, today, you're finally going to figure it out. And I have to warn you, number 3 on this list is the exact thing that destroys the majority of relationships silently and invisibly without a single fight. It slowly eats away at the bond until one day she packs up, leaving you staring at your phone, wondering where things went wrong. So make sure you're locked in when we get to that one. Let's dive in. Number 7, cut through her overthinking with physical certainty. Every single woman experiences this exact moment. Her mind is completely spiraling. Maybe it's stress from her job, maybe it's a passive-aggressive comment her mom made, or maybe she's dissecting a text from a friend from 3 days ago with absolute forensic intensity. Her brain basically has 20 different windows open at once, and everything is freezing up. What most guys do in this scenario is jump straight into fixer mode. They start trying to solve the problem. They'll say things like, well, have you talked to your manager? Or maybe you should just ignore her text. From a purely logical perspective, that makes total sense. You spot the issue, you offer a fix, and the case is closed. But here is what she actually wants from you, and what she would literally rather bite her tongue off than ask you to do. She wants you to walk right up to her without saying a single word, take her face in your hands and kiss her forehead, or just wrap your arms around her and hold her tight against your chest. No unsolicited advice, no commentary, just your physical presence sending a message that words can never quite manage. It says, I've got you, I am solid. You can totally break down for a minute because I am right here and I'm not going anywhere. Dr. Tiffany Field, a neuroscientist who started the Touch Research Institute at the University of Miami, has put out over 100 studies proving that physical touch drops cortisol levels by up to 31% in just a matter of minutes. But what that data doesn't fully capture is the massive emotional impact of a guy giving that touch completely unprompted. That isn't just basic stress relief. It's actual safety made physical. She's never going to ask you for this because admitting she needs comfort feels too much like admitting weakness. Most women have been conditioned since childhood to handle absolutely everything on their own. For her, asking a guy to just hold her feels like she's filing a formal complaint against her own independence. So instead of speaking up, she just spirals all by herself and silently starts resenting the fact that you didn't notice. But look, you don't actually need to read her mind. You just need to read her body language, specifically her shoulders. If her posture is incredibly tense, if she suddenly goes completely quiet, or if she's just staring at her phone screen but clearly not absorbing a single thing she's looking at, that is your green light. Don't waste time asking her what's wrong. Just close the distance between you two and be the exact interruption her nervous system is desperately begging for. Number 6, say her actual name during intimate moments and not just behind closed doors. There is something neurologically electric about hearing your own name come out of the mouth of someone you are deeply attracted to. In fact, a study published in the journal Brain Research discovered that hearing your own name instantly lights up very specific areas in the left hemisphere of the brain, the parts directly tied to self-representation and identity processing. Your name is the single word in any language that your brain recognizes as fundamentally yours. Now take that concept and apply it to intimacy. And no, I don't just mean physical intimacy, though absolutely do it then too. I'm talking about the quiet, everyday moments, like when you're both cooking in the kitchen and he uses your name right before asking you to pass the salt. Or when you're walking slightly ahead of him and he calls out your name just to make you turn around so he can look at you. Or even when he's telling a story to a group of friends and casually says, "So then Sarah turns to me." The sheer fact that she exists in his narrative by her actual name, not just as my girlfriend or a generic she, but as her, means everything. Most guys default entirely to basic pet names like babe, baby, or hun. While those are definitely warm and familiar, they're also completely generic. Let's be real, every girl he's ever been with was probably called babe at some point. Her name, however, belongs exclusively to her. When you drop it during a moment of high intensity, whether that's a quiet, whispered confession, a heated argument where you suddenly stop and say her actual name, or a moment of deep closeness where her name is literally the only word you can bring yourself to say, it triggers an emotional response that basic pet names just cannot replicate. She will never ask you to say her name more often because forcing it would make the whole thing feel totally fake and manufactured. The entire power of it lies in the fact that it feels completely instinctive, like you are so incredibly consumed by her specifically that her name is the only word your brain automatically reaches for. Number 5, handle another guy's attention toward her with calm dominance rather than reactive jealousy. This one is definitely a little controversial, and I know it's going to spark some serious debate. So let me explain exactly what I mean. She absolutely does not want you to start a massive fight or make an embarrassing scene. That isn't attractive at all. It just makes you a liability. But at the same time, she doesn't want you to act completely unbothered either. If another guy is openly flirting with her and you just sit there sipping your drink with absolutely zero reaction, she is going to notice that immediately. And what she registers in her head isn't, "Wow, my man is so secure." Instead, she thinks you just don't care enough to step in. The perfect sweet spot here is a calm, measured sense of possessiveness. You simply walk over, place your hand firmly on her lower back, and look the other guy dead in the eye with a relaxed, effortless confidence. Your vibe should say, "I see exactly what you're trying to do, and I'm not even a little bit threatened by it, but she is with me, and we both know it." At that point, maybe you offer him a polite handshake, or maybe you just introduce yourself. Or maybe you just smoothly pivot the conversation with a casual smile that shows you are completely in control of the situation. Evolutionary psychologist Dr. David Buss discovered that women consistently find proportional mate guarding highly attractive. The absolute key word here is proportional. If you do too much, she feels suffocated and controlled. If you do too little, she feels completely unvalued. But that perfect middle ground, where you acknowledge what's happening without letting it rattle or throw you off balance, is deeply attractive to her on both a conscious and a subconscious level. And here is the hidden truth. She might actually enjoy that moment just a little bit. Not because she's trying to play games or make you jealous, but because your reaction proves everything she needs to know about your confidence, your commitment, and your willingness to claim her as yours without trying to trap her. That specific distinction, claiming her versus caging her, is exactly where most guys completely mess up. Number 4, take something off her plate without making a big announcement about it. This is the silent killer of attraction, and practically no one out there is talking about it. The American Psychological Association's Stress in America survey found that women report noticeably higher levels of chronic stress than men across literally every single category. Whether it's career, family, running the household, managing emotions, or handling daily logistics and scheduling, she is constantly running an invisible project management software in her mind, and the vast majority of it goes totally unnoticed. What she deeply craves is for you to look at her mental checklist, pinpoint one single thing without waiting for her to assign it to you, and just handle it quietly and completely without expecting a trophy or a parade for doing it. If the car is due for an oil change, you just take care of it. If she casually mentioned the kitchen faucet has a slight drip, it's completely fixed by the time she walks through the door. If she's been stressed about having no time for groceries, she opens the fridge and finds it fully stocked. Not because she begged you to do it, but because you actually paid attention and stepped up. Author and researcher Eve Rodsky refers to this as cognitive labor in her book Fair Play. Her findings reveal that in most relationships, women shoulder roughly 70% of this invisible mental workload, and the real exhaustion doesn't even come from doing the actual chores. It comes from being the only person who constantly has to remember that those chores exist in the first place. When a man proactively takes care of something before he's asked, it triggers a wave of relief and attraction that is incredibly powerful. For her, it's the ultimate proof that she is genuinely cared for, and the beauty of it isn't that the chore itself was incredibly difficult. It's the simple fact that noticing it in the first place is so incredibly rare. She's never going to ask you to do this, because having to look at you and ask you to take a burden off her shoulders is, ironically, just adding another task to her mental to-do list. The exact moment she has to identify the chore, explain how to do it, and then follow up to check if you actually completed it, she has put in more mental effort than if she had just handled it herself from the start. The real magic lies entirely in your initiative. The magic is in her walking through the front door and suddenly realizing something is already completely taken care of, without her having to dedicate a single second of brainpower to it. Guys who master this quality become absolutely addictive to be around. In a chaotic world where she is forced to manage every moving part, the man who steps up and manages something for her becomes the absolute only space where she can truly let her guard down and rest. Number 3. This is the exact relationship killer I warned you about earlier. She deeply wants you to keep pursuing her even after you've already won her over. That is the whole secret. It is honestly mind-blowing how many men completely drop the ball on this, the exact moment a relationship becomes official. Back during the initial dating phase, you were absolutely incredible. You were always the one to text first. You actively planned out exciting dates, and you showered her with unprompted compliments. Every single interaction made it feel like you were actively choosing her, like having her in your life was a massive privilege that you didn't take for granted for a second. But then you got comfortable. And look, comfort is a beautiful thing, but somewhere along the line between being comfortable and becoming complacent, you completely stopped doing the exact things that made her fall in love with you in the first place. It's not that you stopped caring about her, it's just that you foolishly assumed the hard work was completely finished. Dr. John Gottman, a renowned relationship expert whose extensive research can predict divorce with over 90% accuracy, identifies this specific issue as the erosion of turning toward your partner. His data demonstrates that couples who eventually ended up separating had a turning toward rate of a mere 33%, whereas couples who managed to stay together successfully maintained a rate well above 80%. She doesn't expect massive, over-the-top romantic gestures from you every single week. What she actually needs is consistent, undeniable proof that you would choose her all over again. She needs evidence that you would choose her today, that if you ran into her for the very first time this afternoon, you would still chase after her with everything you've got. She needs to know she hasn't just become a piece of familiar furniture in your life. She will never actually say these words out loud because admitting, "I need you to chase me again," makes her feel completely desperate. So instead of speaking up, she just goes completely silent. She starts pulling away and investing less of her energy into you, simply because you stopped investing your energy into her first. By the time a real conversation about it happens, if it ever even does, that emotional distance has already hardened into a massive wall that is incredibly difficult to tear down. Sending a completely random text on a Tuesday that says, "I was just sitting here thinking about you and wanted to let you know," takes literally 4 seconds to type, but it can fuel weeks of deep emotional connection. The real secret here is prioritizing consistency over generic sweet words. Setting up a planned date night, not because she begged you for one, but because you absolutely refuse to stop being the kind of man who takes charge and plans things, communicates infinitely more than 1,000 I love yous delivered on autopilot. The men who continue to actively pursue their partners long after the initial chase is over are the exact men whose partners never actually stop being madly in love with them. The guys who stop doing that work slowly and painlessly transform into mere roommates until one day the relationship falls apart all at once. Number two, be completely and verbally explicit about your raw desire for her and specifically for her. Most guys assume that women just want to hear that they are beautiful. And sure, they absolutely do. But telling a girl you're beautiful is just the bare minimum baseline. It's the relationship equivalent of leaving a standard 15% tip at a restaurant. It's completely expected, and it doesn't leave any lasting impression. What she truly wants, the kind of words that will make her lay awake replaying your voice in her head at 2 in the morning, is absolute specificity. Instead of saying, "You're beautiful," try something like, "The exact way you tilt your head when you're focusing on something serious makes it physically impossible for me to concentrate on anything else." Instead of saying, "I'm attracted to you," tell her, "I watched you walk across the room at that party tonight, and I completely forgot what I was saying in the middle of a conversation." Instead of a basic, "You look good," say, "Whatever you did with your hair today has had me completely distracted since this morning, and it's honestly becoming a serious problem for me." The key element here is sheer intensity. She wants to feel like your attraction to her is almost entirely unmanageable. Not in a creepy or threatening way, but in a way that clearly signals, "You have completely disrupted my ability to function like a normal human being, and I am not even slightly sorry about it." That raw, almost confessional tone where you aren't just tossing out a casual compliment, but actively admitting to a total condition she caused, is exactly what makes a woman feel genuinely craved. She will never ask you for this because you can't exactly request an obsession. It has to stem from a place of authentic, overwhelming attraction. And the beautiful thing is, if you actually feel that way about her, all you have to do is stop filtering yourself. Those thoughts are already crossing your mind anyway. You're just keeping them to yourself. Start voicing them out loud. Number one, physically guide and move her. I intentionally saved this point for the very end because it is the single thing that makes women lose their composure the fastest. Yet it's also the exact move men are the most hesitant to pull off. She deeply wants you to physically guide her, reposition her, and direct her body with absolute confidence, without pausing to ask for permission first. I'm talking about placing your hand firmly on her waist to smoothly steer her to the inner side of the sidewalk so she isn't walking right next to passing traffic. It's lacing your fingers tightly through hers and gently pulling her in a whole new direction because you notice something cool you want to show her. It's resting your palm against her lower back to guide her through a crowded doorway. It's placing your hand on her thigh underneath the dinner table, not to grope or put on a performance, but just to be intensely present with her. It's standing directly behind her, placing both of your hands on her hips and gently turning her body towards something. A fascinating study published in Evolutionary Behavioral Sciences discovered that women rated physical assertiveness, which they defined as confident, entirely non-aggressive physical guidance, as one of the top 5 most desirable traits in a partner. This specific behavior instantly triggers subconscious associations with protection, strong decisiveness, and physical assurance all at the same time. The core psychology behind this is deeply primal. Smooth physical movement communicates louder than words that you are fully present in your own body, entirely comfortable with your own strength, and confident enough to claim your space while drawing her directly into that space with you. The reason this ranks as number one on the list is because it functions completely outside the realm of language. You can't fake this type of energy with smooth words, and you certainly can't text it. It only exists in real time, within the intense electricity of close physical proximity and having the balls to close that distance without a single moment of hesitation. She is never going to look at you and say, "I wish you would just grab my body and move me exactly where you want me." But every single time your hand locks onto her waist and gently redirects her, and every time you pull her body closer to yours without over-explaining it, you instantly become the man she compares every single fictional character and passing fantasy to. And trust me, none of them can compete because those fantasies aren't real. And you are standing right there in front of her with your hand on her back, proving that reality is infinitely better. So, there you have it. The 7 hidden things women have been silently craving and stubbornly refusing to voice since the literal beginning of romantic history. The very fact that you locked in and watched this entire video tells me that you aren't the type of guy who just arrogantly assumes he already knows everything. You are the rare kind of man who actually wants to truly understand. That single quality alone puts you miles ahead of 90% of the men she has ever crossed paths with in her life. But look, having knowledge without taking real action is just useless trivia. I didn't make this video just so you could store these points away as interesting facts in your head. I made it so you would actually go out and use them tonight, tomorrow, and in the very next quiet moment where you have to choose between playing it totally safe or doing something that actually makes her feel a deep spark. Choose the second option every single time. Now, here is a final piece that ties this entire puzzle together in a way that might completely transform your very next interaction with her. While you've been sitting here learning exactly what she secretly wants from you, there is an entirely separate reality playing out on her end that you are probably completely blind to. She has been watching, evaluating, calculating, and in many situations, she has already made her final decision about you. The ultimate verdict is already in, and she is absolutely not sharing it with you. The video popping up on your screen right now is called 4 Clear Signs She's Already Chosen You But Isn't Telling You. If you don't click on that video next, everything you just learned here only gives you half of the equation. Knowing what she craves is incredibly powerful, but recognizing the exact moment she has already decided that you are the one for her, that is the ultimate difference between a man who is just trying hard and a man who has already won the game without even realizing it. It's right there on your screen. Go click and watch it right now. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more deep insights into female psychology, attraction dynamics, and real relationship advice.